Okay, we know there's a lot of problems in this city. So many, in fact, that some people think Portland is dying. But instead of complaining about that, let's focus on solutions, starting with a new way to respond to mental health and homeless issues that doesn't involve police. And we've had the vaccine for, 2 months? So why can't some of the most vulnerable people in adult care homes get their shots yet?
It's not right.
We're trying to get some answers. And I know we missed Oregon's birthday. We were just a little distracted by the weather and the power outages and the vaccine cancellations and the restaurants opening back up and the impeachment trial, and you get the point. Anyway, happy belated to the Beaver State. And here's the story.
Hello, I am Dan Haggerty. Welcome to the story. It is Friday. What's that? 1 second. It's Tuesday? This week's really flying by, isn't it? How's yours going? Let me hear it. Email us at thestory@kgw.com. Find me on Facebook and Instagram, or use Twitter in the hashtag HeyDan, like a tweet that I got last night that I spent the entire night thinking about. It came after I made some of my closing remarks about the critical reporting that we do on this show. Now, we often put public entities under the spotlight, or under the microscope, or in the spotlight. You get my point. But we'll talk about ODOT with the roads, or OHA with the vaccine, police when it comes to the use of tear gas, protesters and vandalism, the DA and riots, the employment department and payments, and etc., and so on and so forth, that kind of stuff. Well, last night, Allison sent me this. She said, "Hey, Dan, I think the issue with your criticisms of the systems is that you offer no solutions. It's the easiest thing in the world to complain about something. Finding solutions is the hard part." Now, I don't entirely agree with that assessment of our reporting, but I hear you. So if you want solutions, let's talk solutions.
And with that, let's bring in Maggie Vespa and talk about one of these potential solutions. We're talking about the Portland Street Response Team, the pilot program that launched just today. This is something we have been talking about and reporting on for years, and it is a big deal.
This is a big deal. This is a major step toward what's become known as alternative policing. And Portlanders have been calling for this for a really long time in the hopes it could help our housing crisis. And here it is. The city officially launched Portland Street Response this morning. They sent out that tweet with photos of the team, and then they sent us this video of their outreach team. They'll be out Monday through Friday, 10 to 6 in Southeast Portland's Lentz neighborhood, and the goal is eventually to expand this citywide. That team includes a program manager, a firefighter/paramedic, a mental health crisis clinician, and 2 community health workers. And basically, 911 dispatchers will be sending them, instead of police, to nonviolent calls involving mental health or addiction. And the goal, supporters say, is to get help and social services to people who are on the streets faster, and then also free up armed officers basically to deal with actual crimes in our community.
Now, for people just getting acquainted with all of this, what if one of these nonviolent calls turns violent or turns dangerous, and now you have these unarmed, a social worker there encountering somebody that should actually be coming in contact with an armed police officer? Can you talk a little bit about that, which is probably one of the primary concerns here?
Totally. It's a really common question, so common, in fact, that it was addressed at a press conference today. The Portland Street Response program manager said that basically when 911 operators are trained as to how to vet these calls and kind of ID really good fits for these street response teams, there's a nearly 0% rate of injury. And that's based on data from other cities with similar programs. And then she talked about some of the first calls that the team actually got today.
And it was an individual who was out in the middle of the street that was panhandling, and there was concern that he might end up getting hit by a car. So we went and responded to that. And then we had another call come in shortly thereafter for another woman who was also in the middle of the street, and she was yelling at cars, and so we went and responded to that.
So in both cases, the program manager, Robin Burek, noted that the team actually couldn't find the people at the center of those calls. And then when she said that, Mayor Ted Wheeler stepped in and added this.
Last Friday, I did a police ride-along. There was a call that went out for a potential individual in crisis out at Delta Park. 2 police cruisers spent about 30 minutes searching the entire area for the individual who either made the call or potentially the individual in crisis, and ultimately nobody was found. So that is not an atypical situation, but either way, having non-emergency personnel respond is still a better utilization of our resources.
So Dan, we're going to be diving much more into this new program and how leaders say it'll work, especially if and when it expands citywide tomorrow night here on The Story.
Got it. And Maggie, we'll continue, as I know you will, to keep looking for the solutions and those types of angles that our viewers want to see right now. And people are hoping that this program will, in fact, be a big solution to a major problem in this city. Maggie. Portland has been looking for an alternative to police for mental health and homeless issues for a while now. So how did we get here? Eugene has had a program like this for decades. It's called CAHOOTS, which stands for Crisis Assistance Helping Out on the Streets. They started actually by running first aid tents at Grateful Dead shows in the 1970s and 80s. And for the past 30 years, they've worked alongside Eugene police. Instead of officers, CAHOOTS sends teams of EMTs and crisis counselors to calls involving addiction or mental health crises. In 2013, the U.S. Department of Justice found that Portland police had a pattern of using excessive force against people suffering from mental illness. So the Bureau started training all of its officers in crisis intervention. But that wasn't enough for some groups, who pointed out that police were frequently sent out to non-violent calls involving homeless people. In 2019, Street Roots pitched the idea of having response teams field these calls instead of police. Commissioner Joanne Hardesty signed on to the proposal and got funding for a pilot program that was scheduled to launch in spring 2020. But it kept getting pushed back, first to fall of 2020 and then to February 2021 after COVID and other issues delayed the hiring process. And that's how we got here.
Now, we're also working to get solutions for the people in that 1A vaccine group who still right now cannot get a shot. Thousands of people living in more than 1,200 adult foster homes in Oregon who feel forgotten, which makes sense because they were literally forgotten. Kristen Severance first told you last night that they are all still on the vaccine waiting list if they could actually find themselves on a list. They don't even have a plan right now to get the shot. She's been contacting every state agency out there about this.
I feel like it's the same story every week. You just replace the group of upset or frustrated people. I interviewed a ton of seniors when they were bumped in the vaccine line for teachers. We interviewed family members of people in long-term care facilities waiting for the vaccine after Governor Brown mistakenly said they were all vaccinated when they weren't. And now I'm hearing from people living or working in these adult care facilities. And I have to say, it has been difficult to get clear answers on really where these facilities should go to get the vaccine. These are small facilities run out of people's homes. They're in the state's 1A category. Gina Roberts runs a place to call home in Tigard. She's been trying to get her 5 residents vaccinated since December. Residents like 95-year-old Ray, who can't be loaded into a car and taken to a drive-through vaccination clinic, or 78-year-old Carol on oxygen, who has not been able to see her family.
I haven't gotten a hold of the baby now for 6 months. My daughter comes and talks to me through the door. I'm lonely.
There are more than 1,400 adult care facilities in Oregon, and they're supposed to get the vaccine through a federal program. But only 172 out of 1,400 facilities have registered for the program. The state's long-term care advocate told me the state did not do a good enough job communicating with the facilities on how to get the vaccine. But even the facilities who did register are having issues. CVS was scheduled to vaccinate Gina's residents on February 10th, but then they canceled and stopped responding. And even though this is not Gina's fault at all, she feels like she let her residents and their family members down.
You know, I've had people that have passed away in the last few months that didn't get to see their families. You know, it's not right. It's been hard on everyone, I know that, but they're supposed to be in the first group. They're the people that are at the most risk. And I live every day in fear then I'm going to bring it back to them.
I did hear back from Oregon Department of Human Services today, DHS. They said staff has reached out to Gina about getting a vaccine clinic rescheduled. They also sent a letter to all the adult care facilities today saying that someone will be calling all of these adult foster homes over the next few weeks to connect them with the pharmacy, reassign providers, or connect them with a mobile clinic. Gina, the woman in my story, said this should have been done a long time ago, but it's a start. We'll, of course, keep you posted.
All right, thanks to Kristen. Now, at the same time, there are a lot of people trying to get the vaccine right now, including some seniors, a lot of teachers. We know that you have a lot of questions about all of this because everything does seem to change week to week with this rollout. Fortunately, we have Pat Doris, who's been on the vaccine beat for us since day one. So let's go to him now to answer some of your questions.
We have some good questions about COVID-19 and the vaccination process today. Let's jump to it. The first one is, has the snow shutting down vaccine clinics put Oregon behind its vaccination goals? Excellent question. The answer is yes, but only temporarily. Because everything that was shut down last weekend, like at OHSU out at the airport, that's just been moved to the following weekend. And the convention center lost 3 days, but they've already rescheduled those into, I think, Wednesday and Thursday of this current week. And they did that before they opened up new appointments this morning. So everything should be right on track for that. Next question. I'm over 75 and eligible to sign up for the vaccine this week. Will people 80 and older be prioritized over me? No, but they will be going for the same appointments as you. So going to be a lot of sharp elbows in there probably. And that's why vaccination times that were available, slots available this morning, went really fast, super duper fast. More than 5,000 snapped up in 90 minutes for the convention center. Something like 2,500 snapped up in 30 minutes for the airport. They're going to open more on Thursday morning at 9 a.m., so you might be ready with those online sites. Okay, number 3, why can't I schedule my first dose in Washington this week? Well, here's the answer to that. It seems that in Washington, some people that were supposed to be holding back second doses because they'd already given somebody their first shot, they were using all the doses that they got for all first shots. And remember a couple weeks ago, that was a big controversy around the country. It was kind of unclear whether Oregon was holding back doses or what was going on. At any rate, all of a sudden, Washington has a shortage, and they're getting about 206,000 doses, they say, in this week, but people have asked for 170,000 second doses. So if they fill all those, which they probably should because you got to have that second dose, that only leaves them with about 36,000 first doses that they can do during this week. That's way less than the 128,000 they had counted on. So it's not like no one will get first shots this week in Washington State, but a whole bunch of people who thought they maybe would get them are not going to. And that's the answers to your COVID questions.
All right, thanks, Pat. Keep those questions coming. We do want to do our daily vaccine count check-in right now. As of this afternoon, more than 487,000 Oregonians have gotten at least their first dose. A lot of those people have gotten their second dose, but we're counting the first dose. We are at 11.5% of the state's population right now with at least one shot. In Washington, the updates to their vaccine numbers, they come in 3 times a week. So as of yesterday, more than 807,000 people had gotten their first shot, which works out to be about 10.7% of the state's population. Hey, I'm not sure if you saw this story. It was going around on Twitter last week. The headline was like amazing. It said, a teen was reunited with his pet rooster, lost at an Alabama Cracker Barrel after a Civil War reenactment. Come again? The headline sounds like a Mad Lib, which got us thinking we should probably do a Mad Lib. So I got on Facebook. I asked you guys to fill this out, fill in the blanks. We needed a person, an animal, a place, and a historic event. And your answers were perfect. I loved Gail. She came up with the Unipiper was reunited with his pet beaver, lost at an Oregon beach after an exploding whale reenactment, which actually sounds less far-fetched than the original headline. We're going to show some more of your answers throughout the show. If you want to play along, it's fun. Head over to the Facebook page, Dan Haggerty, KGW, and leave me a comment. Now, do you remember Oregon's contact tracing app? A lot of you have been wondering about this and saying, is that still a thing? You're probably not going to like the answer. And at least one person is benefiting from the snow and ice, an Oregon state lawmaker who gets to keep his job for at least another week, when the story continues. Hat Pat getting the name drop. Welcome back. We're playing Mad Libs on my Facebook page. We're showing some of your answers throughout the show. Leave me a comment if you'd like. Maybe I'll make it on air. Just use that hashtag #HeyDan. We're trying to have a little bit of fun because, honestly, there has not been a whole lot of fun over the past couple of days. I know a lot of you still don't have power right now. Many of you have been watching us on your phone. Maybe you're staying at family's house. Maybe you're staying with friends or at a hotel, something like that. This ice storm has caused the largest power outage in Oregon history, according to the governor. And there's a good chance that you or someone you care about is one of the hundreds of thousands of people still waiting for the lights to pop back on. Now, we've been getting many messages like this since the beginning. Tatiana wrote this in and she said, "We had power out for days. I ran into a PGE worker checking out our lines on Saturday. He apologized and talked to me for a bit. He said it may take a week." It's a really frustrating situation, or worse than frustrating, for a lot of you. And one of the hardest parts is that uncertainty about when the power will come back. How much longer will it be? So let's check in with Kyla Boshi now for an update.
PGE admits this situation is especially challenging because there are so many outages spread across the entire region. They're working as quickly as they can, and they brought in crews from as far away as Montana and Nevada, but it's not an easy fix. In fact, they don't really have a good estimate on when power will be restored to specific areas. Typically, they'll give people an idea. They go on their website, it'll say, listen, we'll have your power back on tomorrow at 4 o'clock, for example. In this case, they just don't know because there are so many outages they're dealing with. As far as priorities go, their number one priority is life and safety. If somebody's in danger or they've got a down power line that's live, they're going to deal with that immediately. Then they'll go to how they can help the most people all at once. So for instance, if they got a repair that can help 4,000 people versus 4, they're going to help those 4,000 people immediately, then move on down the line. Again, no firm timeline on when power will be restored. It could still be days.
Got it. I know that's not too reassuring when you don't know how many days it might be, but keep asking those questions. We'll look for answers. I do want to go back to the pandemic for just a minute because I'm getting a lot of questions like this one from Steve on Twitter. He said, "Hey, Dan, why doesn't Oregon have contact tracing on Apple and Android enabled yet?" It's a good question. Oregon has supposedly been developing this contact tracing app for months. It would alert you if you get close to somebody who has tested positive for COVID. It's supposedly a great system. You get near somebody, it says don't be near them, right? Now, in October, the state told us it would be ready in December. Then in December, they told us it would be ready in January. Well, it's February now, so we asked the state again today, and they told us it'll go live in the spring. We wanted, can you be a little bit more specific? And they said, we only know spring at this point. Now, for the record, Washington's contact tracing app has been up and running since November. In fact, about 20 U.S. states and territories have these types of apps. And according to this article from USA Today, most people don't use them. And considering the effectiveness of the app is dependent on a large number of people actually using them, it makes you wonder about the viability of this technology at all. Is it worth it? Why aren't people using them, you might wonder? Well, some experts think it's because Americans don't trust the technology or the tech companies to collect and share that type of personal medical information. As for why it's taking so long here in Oregon, we didn't get that answer today. We asked. In the past, they told us they were waiting for data from a pilot program at Oregon State University, but that pilot program ended at the end of last year, so we're waiting. We'll let you know what we find out. In the meantime, if you have any other questions about contact tracing in general, send them my way to the story at kgw.com because I'm going to be talking to Multnomah County Health about that tomorrow. Now, we've got a little update on Oregon State Representative Diego Hernandez. You probably remember an investigation found that he created a hostile work environment for women at the Capitol who he had dated, who he had relationships with. And the Conduct Committee voted to expel him from the legislature. It was a huge deal. Well, the entire House was supposed to vote on that today. But because of the snow and the ice, everything at the Capitol is shut down. So that vote is now scheduled for a week from today. So we'll keep you posted on exactly what happens. But in the meantime, here is something from OPB that we think is worth your time. Hernandez is now suing the legislature for millions of dollars over how this investigation was handled. He's claiming he wasn't given a fair chance to defend himself and wasn't allowed to provide evidence to the Conduct Committee. So he attached that evidence to this lawsuit, which includes text messages with some of his accusers. Remember, the process lawmakers went through here is very new. It was implemented in the wake of a sexual harassment scandal surrounding former State Senator Jeff Cruz in 2018. You can check out the whole story right now on OPB's website. So Oregon, I feel horrible. The birthday came, the big 162 this week. I mean, it's not exactly a milestone birthday, but you should celebrate them all. But it wasn't quite like when Oregon turned 100 and people went all out. We're going to finish this story with a little dig into the vault, into 1959, right after this. Hey, welcome back. Oh, wait, we're doing our Mad Libs. What's that one? Matt Zaffino was reunited with his pet polar bear lost on Mount Hood after a pandemic reenactment. I can't wait for us to be only speaking of that as a reenactment. I'm done with the pandemic. The Mad Libs are fun. We've been doing them on my Facebook page. Hey, welcome back. So we missed something kind of big this week. Oregon's 162nd birthday was on Valentine's Day, but we have an excuse, which is something people always say when they forget something on Valentine's Day. But there was a lot of snow and a lot of ice and that kind of stuff to deal with. And I didn't get a Facebook notification about Oregon's birthday. And that's how I keep track of birthdays. That's really, I would forget my own if Facebook wasn't like, hey, happy birthday, Dan. But for the belated celebration, here's something we found in the KGW vault from Oregon's Centennial in 1959.
1959 was the year of Oregon's 100th birthday celebration, centered around a Centennial Exposition and International Trade Fair held on the 65-acre Multnomah County Exposition Center, formerly called the PI, Pacific International. Solemn ceremonies on June 10th with governors, mayors, and diplomats from more than 24 foreign nations, scores of Hollywood stars, and a 100-gun salute opened the spectacle. 1,330,000 visitors in 100 days helped Oregon celebrate its 100th birthday.
A picturesque wagon train attracted nationwide attention as 7 covered wagons set out from Independence, Missouri on April 19th to retrace the old Oregon Trail to Independence, Oregon. Wagon master Tex Serpa led his band of 27 through wind, rain, and sun, some 2,200 miles across 5 states, reliving the arduous journey of the pioneers during the 1850s. The wagon train was greeted by massive crowds everywhere along the way.
Among the most enterprising communities celebrating the centennial were the people of the Tillamook area. They built a replica of the first sailing schooner built in Oregon in 1855 and named it Morning Star II. The new Morning Star, piloted by a veteran Norwegian skipper, Axel Andersen, sailed up the Columbia with a 12-man crew, bringing a cargo of Tillamook cheese and greetings from all the coastal communities to the Oregon Centennial.
A crate of Tillamook cheese. I love that. I wish that's how we still talked on the news. I love those vault segments. Hey, let's read a couple of questions here, comments. Lori wrote in and said, hey, you or your writer misplaced the word belated when you said happy belated birthday to the state. It's not the birthday that is belated, it's the happy. The correct way to utter this sentiment is belated happy birthday. Is that correct? I'm usually pretty good with my grammar. That sounds correct. Thank you. I appreciate the critique there. We also got a couple people writing in about, the governor's statement that this was the largest power outage in state history. And some people were like, I find it hard to believe. The Columbus Day storm of 1962. There were some other people that were talking about fires that knocked power out and stuff like that. So we'll look into that a little bit. We were taking the governor's word for it, I think. But it could be interesting to take a look at some of the other major outages in history, because we are in the midst of, if not the biggest, certainly one that's up there right now, though the governor did say it was the biggest. I do want to tell you something else, too. Somebody emailed me during the show. And during commercials and sometimes when there's longer pieces running, I go to my phone and start talking to folks. And we take your feedback so seriously. They kind of gave us a story pitch that I then sent to Maggie Vespa, that Maggie then started to research and found some evidence that basically pointed us in the direction that this tip might end up being something. So that is what we expect our viewers to help us with. We literally want you to tell us what to cover, and we will take that ball and run with it. So if you have ideas, if you have things that you think are important to you or your community, let us know. We are here to work for you. That's the story for tonight. Like I said yesterday, it's going to be a long week, so keep us informed. Let us know what kind of help you need as things get back to normal and the power shifts back on. That's the story. I'm Dan Haggerty. We'll see you tomorrow.